needs to approve the HCP amendment. And because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife review only was conducted under NEPA, we prepared a separate document for review of the HCP amendment under CEQA. And that is the document that was just recently distributed to the Council, and it was prepared by LSA, and it was dated December 2009, and it was entitled the Environmental Addendum, or Habitat Conservation Plan Environmental Impact Report Environmental Assessment Addendum. What this document is the city's own compliance with CEQA, which is the action you need in order to approve the HCP amendment. It's separate from the project, and it's a separate environmental review, and it relies primarily upon the environmental assessment that was conducted by the service. So one of the things that you're approving in Resolution 2010-01 is this addendum to the environmental review for the HCP. The other thing that's being approved in the same resolution is the addendum to the environmental impact report for the project itself. And that was initially dealt with in the 2007 addendum, and it's the same document that was preliminarily approved by the City Council in 2008. Because some time has gone by between that approval and now, part of your packet is also an update to that addendum, which is basically for the purpose of determining that nothing has really changed since the Council granted a preliminary approval of the 2007 addendum in 2008. So Resolution 2010-01 would constitute the final approval of the addendum to the HCP EIR that would enable the Council to approve the amendment number 5, and the final approval of the 2007 addendum to the project EIR that would then be the environmental basis for the Council's approval of the project entitlements, the vested tentative map, the design permit, the PD permit, and the grading permit. So all of that is bundled into Resolution 2010-01. 2010-02 are the actual projects themselves that are being approved, and again there are two different actions going on. One is the approval of the HCP amendment number 5, making the findings that are required for that amendment, and the other is the final approval of the project entitlements, and this would basically finalize the preliminary approval that the Council granted back in 2008. I'd point out that also attached to Resolution 2010-02 are the modified conditions of approval and a copy of the HCP, and that's attached as Exhibit C, all 35 some pages of it, and also a copy of the actual text and the drawings of HCP Amendment number 5, which has now been approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and also approved by the County of San Mateo. In addition to that, the service also amended the incidental take permit, the ITP, and the city's approval of that action is not required. That's strictly done by the service. So what we have now is the amendment having been approved by the service and the county, the incidental take permit having been amended, and this resolution constituting or would constitute the approval by the City of Brisbane of the amendment as well as the project entitlements for the modified project. There is also a table that's included in the staff report that shows how all of the various conditions that are set forth in the HCP amendment and the amended incidental take permit have been incorporated into the project's conditions of approval. And that table is intended to demonstrate that the project as now modified, including all of the funding provisions that have now been incorporated into the conditions, comply with the amended HCP. And that essentially is the issue before the council tonight. It is our feeling that with the modified design of the project and the modified funding provisions, that the council can make a finding of compliance with the amended HCP, and staff would therefore recommend that the modified project be approved by the adoption of resolutions 2010-01 and 2010-02. And with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Kay Gooding from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for her comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I started to say good morning, but it isn't. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm the Assistant Field Supervisor over the Endangered Species Program that's responsible for habitat conservation planning efforts.
You give it the name, Kay?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kay Goody, C-A-Y-G-O-U-D-E. Anyway, I'm very happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this. I'm not going to go over the history, which has been remarkably condensed. It's been a long haul on dealing with the different issues, and they've done a very good job in presenting the information. As you heard, the service issued the permit for the amendment in May of '09. The service and our office is responsible in making sure that we continue the survival of the butterfly in the Endangered Species Act. We take our position very seriously. We view habitat conservation plans as an incredible opportunity to do large-scale conservation planning in an area. It provides, in fact, we're working on numerous HCPs in the area, in the Bay Area, in fact, and we just issued a plan in Contra Costa recently that we feel is a good success story on the way to happening. The basic tenets of that went into the negotiations on the Northeast Ridge was the concern about the size of the development, where the development was, and the management. As you well know, there's been a shortage of funding on the plan, and hindsight is always best, looking back after many years and recognizing that there was a need for an increase in funding and a reduction in the development footprint. And after many hard negotiations and working with our biological experts and other experts within our agency and listening to other comments, the footprint of the project was reduced. They removed eucalyptus, which we thought was an important factor, or they're removing eucalyptus, and they changed the actual configuration, as well as creating a management plan and a funding mechanism that will provide an opportunity to remove some of the invasive plants that have been established. Basically, we would not have issued this permit if we didn't think that this was the best mechanism for the long-term survival of the butterflies on San Bruno Mountain. So if you have any questions, I'd be feel free, and I have a suite of experts that are much better than I to describe or deal with some of the issues as it relates to the butterfly.
Any council clarifications?
I do. I'm sorry, I have a really bad cold, and if it wasn't that important, the subject wasn't that important, I would have not been here. Thank you for making the time coming here. As you know from the crowd, San Bruno Mountain is really precious for us. And Fish and Wildlife has issued the permit. Who are the people who have been involved in rendering this opinion?
The Fish and Wildlife Service is authorized by Congress, are the ones that administer the act. And we, the service issued the permit in May, and it was from our Sacramento field office as with input from our regional office. But we had numerous comments on the NEPA documents, and we spent an incredible amount of time on reviewing the issues. One of the important things to remember about an issue of this nature is that we have to look at it may not be what we have to look at what is best for the butterfly, what it would be its long-term survival and benefit and the management plan. And we stand behind our issuance of that permit and I would do it again, and we would do it again, because it is probably the best mechanism to maintain that butterfly on the site. Without management and without funding of that site, I do not think it would persist over time.